to Threads of Legacy, the Pine Forge Academy story and special podcast series presented by the National Pine Forge Alumni Association. We are now celebrating 80 years of Pine Forge Academy. My name is Carol Cantu, and I was the sponsor of the class of 79, and I'll be your host right now. Each episode of this Threads of Legacy, each episode gives the memories and the stories and the experiences of a particular Pine Forge Academy alumni who has helped weave together the rich tapestry of our school's history. Today, I have the pleasure of interviewing Clifford Fields from the class of 79. Good day, Clifford.
Hello.
Okay, I have some questions for you.
Not a problem. Let's go.
Okay, first, I want you to introduce yourself. I've already said you're Clifford Fields, but go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell what you're doing today, what you're, where you are professionally, and other things before I get to the questions that you would like everyone to know about you.
Okay. Again, my name is Clifford Fields. I'm from the illustrious class of 1979, the best class ever. And the rest of you can challenge that, but we were the best class. I am currently residing in Laurel, Maryland with my wife. And of 27 years, we live here in Laurel. And professionally, I, along with my wife, we co-own an outpatient mental health substance abuse treatment center in Largo, Maryland. Been in business now almost 20 years, but privately. But before that, this is my 46th year in therapy and counseling. That's where we are today.
Wow. I can't believe this many years have passed.
You
look the same. You look the same.
I'm feeling it.
Tell me, Clifford, when you first found out that you were going to Pine Forge Academy, what was your reaction to that?
Oh, I was ecstatic. I was happy because I grew up in Savannah, Georgia. That's where we're from. So if you know anything about the Fields family, we're from Savannah, Georgia. And it was the older Pine Forge students who had come to Pine Forge from Savannah, people like Richard Pender, the Bloats. We grew up with those guys. And so knowing that they'd gone off to Pine Forge, and then the second group of Pine Forge students followed after them. That's Luther Washington, grew up with Luther Washington, Alan Powell, Alan Mills, Phyllis Williams. That's the group I came in. And so my brother came first. Isaiah is the oldest of 6. And so Isaiah came first. And so we were coming up for his graduation. And so when we reached the campus, I was excited because I knew I would be there in 77. I knew that. And so once we got to Pine Forge, they were making preparations for graduation. And I was just walking around the campus, just enjoying what I saw. And it was Mr. Lewis or Mr. Willis. It was one of those guys. I just don't remember who was the groundskeeper at the time. And he said, "Son, what are you doing?" I said, "I'm just walking around." He said, "This grass." And I looked at him with surprise. I said, I'm not a student. He said, "You are now. Get on this tractor." So I started cutting the front lawn of the administration building. on this big tractor I had never driven before. And after I got the hang of it, that's what I started doing. And so, that was my introduction to Pine Forge. And I knew I loved it at that point, even though I had not been a student. I knew at that point. And I begged my mom, I said, Mom, I got to stay. I got to stay. She said, you don't have clothes, you don't have anything. I said, Mom, I got to stay the summer. Please let me stay the summer. And that's how it all began. I stayed the summer.
Now, my next question was, give me one of your favorite memories.
Ooh,
You
man.
gave one, but you weren't even a student yet. So,
Wasn't even a student.
well, give us
One
one
that comes to mind for when I was a student.
when you were a student. Okay.
You see, there's a plethora of memories.
But you can't give them all. So give me one.
Well, thinking about that one, it would be the Max. There was a quiet group of us called ourselves the Max. And we went around the campus doing things that needed to be done. And I'll never forget, it was a group of us. We snuck into the administration building and we waxed the floor. We washed, we mopped and waxed the floor. And then we got out. So the next morning when Elder Humphrey and the rest of the staff came in, they went, who did this? But we couldn't tell them. We didn't tell them at all. But that's what we did. We went around. So that was one of the most vivid memories outside of Mr. Battle's history tour. But that was one of the great memories.
Yeah. Well, I know there's so many. It's hard to choose one.
There's so many.
Now, and the next question is, so many people who influenced you when you were there. I know, but give me, if you can say, who had the greatest influence on your life while you were at Pine Forge, who would you say that was?
Wow. Like you said, there's so many. So many. Well, it was Dean Cantu.
Who was?
Dean Burns. Those two.
Mm.
Because they saw something, they said, we see something in you that you haven't seen in yourself. And I said, what does that mean? It doesn't mean anything. What are you talking about?
Mm.
And I'll never forget, back then, remember we had those father, son, mother, daughter, little get-togethers.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I remember I had said, oh yeah, my dad's coming. My dad's coming, right? And Dean Burns would always look at me and he said, really? And so we were planning this program for the weekend. And he said, Cliff, your dad is coming? I said, yep, he's coming. And he said, well, we're going to ask your father to do prayer. And I went, huh? Excuse me? He said, yeah, we want your father on the program to do prayer. And I'll never forget that. That shook me to the core because I'd been hiding the secret that my father was still a part of our family, and he wasn't. Mm. And I wanted to be like every other student there, every other male student there, and my hope was that my father would come. And so Dean Burns pulled me aside, and Dean Cantu was sitting there, and he said, Cliff, let me ask you something. I said, yes, sir. He said, your father's not coming, is he? And I looked at him and I said, no, sir. And tears started welling up. And he said to me, he said, son, we know this. And you've been hoping and wishing. You don't have to do that. We're your father. And I went, what? He said, yes, we're your father away from home. And I went, wow. And that to me that made such an impression on me. And from that point on, if you remember, I hung around your apartment, hung around the Burns' apartment, just seeing what did my fathers want me to do. Mm. And those guys encouraged me. I remember Eric Davis and I were sitting in our room, And Dean Cantu came by and he said, "You guys are studying?" I said, "Yes, sir. Father, I'm studying." And he says, "All right, son, you better get it right." And I remember they kept calling me that every now and then. They didn't overdo it. It was right on time. If I was not doing what I should do, they would say, "Do you need to see your father?" Yes, sir, I do. I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. So yeah, those two made the greatest impact. But everybody from Charles Battles, Mrs. Hill, Paul Jones, can't forget about the man we call Duck Jones, Michael Jones' impact. And oh, can't forget about you. Remember you taught me French? And I didn't do well in French. And so I had to take French twice. First time I got a D, second time I got a C. It wasn't until I went off to Japan that I learned Japanese and said, "Oh, I could learn French now." But yeah, so there were so many people who were impactful. Paul Brooks, Miss Cox back in the day. There were so many people.
Yes. Amazing people. Let me ask you this. If somebody said to you, well, what's the difference between Pine Forge Academy and going to some other school? What would you answer?
Now, my wife and I, what we do, I'm going to answer the question, but I'll start it like this. Whenever we have young people come through our facility and they have problems, we often think, what would happen if we sent this person to Pine Forge? Because Pine Forge changed the trajectory of any kid who comes to the campus. What do I mean by that? At Pine Forge, you have dedicated teachers, those who love you in spite of who you are and how much you brought in your U-Haul of emotions. They sat with you, they prayed with you, they heard you, they listened and not talk at you, but talk to you. And that just opened up so many things. And if my classmates are listening, remember when Mr. Battles had us read the book, The $30 Billion Negro? And it talked about how we as Black folk consume more cherry soda, red soda, than anybody else in the country. How the money leaves our community. And as a teenager, we looked at that and we saw that and we said, wait a minute. We're contributors to the economic downfall of our community. So we need to start doing things. We were in Portland a few years ago and I found the book. I bought it. It's out of print. It was at a bookstore that dealt in rare books. So I got my copy of the $30 billion Negro. And that was back then. So that's what I would tell somebody. Your child will never be the same as you know them if they go to Pine Forge. They grow up, but they see the worth of being Black and talented. They see that worth. And people put that worth, the teachers do, help you to discover and understand your place in life, not just on campus, but in life going forward. That's the difference between Pine Forge and regular school.
Wow. After you said that, this next question is going to be hard.
Okay.
Because you already said there was so much you learned that were lessons, that last for life. And the question is, what lessons, what values did you gain or learn at Pine Forge that have lasted? But I know there are many. So you already said.
There are many. You're right. There are many. But the one that I use every day Senior year, Elder Humphrey had everybody come to his office one at a time, and we had to recite Dear Youth out of Messages to Young People. And I wasn't prepared, so I thought. And I remember I wanted to be the last one in the room. And I used to ask everybody, come on, what did Elder Humphrey do while you were reciting? He said he closed his eyes. I said, oh, good, good. I'm carrying my book in, and I'm going to look at my book if I need to. And I remember when I walked in the room, and Elder Humphrey said, Mr. Fields, are you ready? And I said, yes, sir, I think I am. I'm ready. Mm-hmm. He said, could you put your book on my desk? Because I don't want you to be tempted. And I went, oh my goodness. Integrity time. Mm-hmm. And I'd been hearing it since 77. So I knew it, but didn't know I knew it. Mm-hmm. And I remember looking at Elder Humphrey, and I said, dear youth, what is the aim and purpose of your life? Have you thoughts that you dare not express, that you may one day sit into deliberative branches of government to help to enact laws for the nation? And I went on to recite that thing. And when I finished, I was crying. And Elder Humphrey said, you are ready to be the leader that God has required you to be. Good job, Clifford. Good job. And so every time I'm with the young people, I'm telling you, I thought I was good with young people, but as I've gotten older, it's like a lot of the antics. I'm like, really? And I said, let me tell you this story. Integrity time is what I call it. It's integrity time. I have a kid right now telling me that, Ms. Fields, I don't want to be a part of your program because I'm going to jail anyway. I said, son, you don't need to go to jail. You really don't need to go to jail, son. He said, nah, that's why I'm not giving urines. That's why I'm not want to come. No, I said, listen, God has created in you something that only you can do. He said, yeah, steal cars. I said, no, everybody can steal cars. He has a dream. He has put something in your spirit like he did for me way back at Pine Forge. I told him this just yesterday. And I said, son, you are not going to jail. In spite of what you've done, God has a purpose for your life. And if that purpose means you go to jail, the purpose will be found there in jail, but you're not going to jail. So Dear Youth was it for me. That was that, woo, that I still use even today. Yeah.
I think you've answered the next question, but specifically, how has your having been at Pine Forge impacted your life, your growth, your family, your career?
Ooh.
Everything about you. Yeah.
Remember, the motto at that time was the 4 best years of your life. And Charles Bass made us understand that every day. To be told you're a leader and being put in leadership positions, whether we swept the dorm, whether we worked at Little Lake, whatever we did, we were often told you're a leader. So hear that repetition over and over. And now when I remember coming out of school, starting my first job out of Oakwood at Psych Institute of Washington, and I'm going to a drug and alcohol unit. And I remember Mr. Battle saying, you're a leader. You're a leader. God has given you what you need. And I'll never forget, I walked into that unit at Psych Institute on K Street in Washington, had my lab coat on, and I said, ooh, I really feel like a leader and a doctor, right? Wasn't a doctor, just a counselor. And I remember how folks said, you're a different kind of guy. And all before, if I had not gone to Pine Forge, I would say, what are you talking about? No, I knew what they were talking about. Mm-hmm. And I remember they said, we don't normally do this, but we want you to lead this particular group. And I said, okay. And I did my preparation. All of you stress preparation. You must always be prepared for an opportunity, or not be prepared and have one come and not be prepared, right? It's better to be prepared for an opportunity and have one come than to have one come and not be prepared for the opportunity. That's what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. And I remember I jumped in there, and I'll never forget, I jumped in and I took over. And there were two doctors who watched me and said, you're a different kind of person. We've never had someone here like you. And I'm like, okay, I don't know what you're talking about, but I know I'm leading. And so I went on at Psych Institute of Washington, had a 9-year career there before leaving. And I remember I just rose from one department to the next, from children's unit all the way to the adults and the leadership of Pine Forge. And I remember wearing my sweater many times, and they wanted to know where's Pine Forge? I never heard of it. I often told them about that. So leadership, and now that I remember when I started my practice, there were just 3 of us, 3 people. And today we have over 14 people working for us. And every day I have to say to myself, remember, you're the CEO of Fields and Fields Treatment Center. Be who you are, but lead. So many times staff will come to my office and Mr. Fields, can I talk to you? I go, yeah, sit, let's talk. And they'll unburden themselves. And I'm finding myself looking back at those that I used to admire and being told now people are admiring me. I'm going, wow, isn't that a full circle? Wow. So yeah, I lead everything I learned at Pine Forge, and I believe, and I tell people, Pine Forge was the place outside of what my mom did for us. Pine Forge made it a reality. Mom often said it, but it became a reality when we started doing it every day. And Mom says to me now, see, I knew you would do it. There was no doubt in my mind. Mm-hmm. Special. God gave you something. And so not just me, but all of us, all my brothers and even my sister, we're leaders. And I'm just so thankful for that.
Amen. Like a song. Mm-hmm. So what would you tell today's students?
You know, there's a different breed today. Mm-hmm. You know, these young people today, I believe the young people today want to do right.
Well, let me just, you say there's a different breed. It's a different world too.
It's a different world, yes.
Yeah. So go ahead.
Remember, we didn't have cell phones and internet back then. We had to study everything. But now they pick up their phones and they can go right to the answer.
That's right.
And then when I'm telling students, I'm saying, you don't know how to write in cursive? What? Everything's text or emailed. So you don't need a signature. You can put an electronic signature. And I'm going, wow. So what I would tell the young people today is this. Pine Forge is a place that allows you to grow at your pace, but they're helping you grow for the future. And a lot of folks say, what does that mean? It means this. You think that your parent or parents are punishing you by sending you there. There, you're going to have friendships for life. Not like you have in public school. You have friendship for life in public school, depending on what you're into. But once you become a leader and know that you're a leader, even the runt of the litter, you have a place at Pine Forge. Pine Forge is going to bring out the best in you. You think you can sing in the shower? Watch what they do to you with your voice when you want to sing. You think you want to get into drama and acting? Watch what happens when you go to Pine Forge. And if it doesn't happen, it means you weren't committed to it. It has nothing to do with the school. It is everything with person being ready to deal with what's ahead of them. So Pine Forge is going to prepare you for life, and it's going to make you different than any other kid that you come across. From Pine Forge, I still open the door for my wife or any woman that comes in. I still wait for them, hold the door to do whatever I need to do. Learned it at Pine Forge, still doing it today. Pine Forge puts something in you and it allows you to grow. And once it grows, you're going to say, man, I remember I used to not do that, but look at God. So that's what I would tell that young person.
Wow. Well, now that we're celebrating the 80 years with the theme Threads of Legacy, what does it mean to you being a part of Pine Forge Legacy?
I'm so thankful for Pine Forge Academy. But I have a son who went to Pine Forge Academy. That in front of the administration building are two bricks that say Clifford Fields Senior, class of 79, and Clifford Fields Junior, class of 17, I think. That's a thread to go along with the other threads of the Fields family. You have Isaiah, 77. You have my sister Inez, 79. You have Ivan, 80. You have Dexter, and you have Charles. And Charles is the last of the six of us. And so the thread still runs, and we're a part of that tapestry, the Fields family. And that makes, listen, when I see the old green and white come through town, it puts a smile on my face. When I was in Japan wearing my shirt, and then I automatically start hearing the song On the River Manatoni. It was the Breath of Life Quartet singing on the platform because they saw the Pine Forge shirt. Oh. And I went, wow. And it was so good to see those guys. They were in town. The tapestry, the thread continues to run. And I am so pleased to be a Pine Forge alumnus, bleeding green and white. That's my school. Will always be my school.
Is there a final reflection? Anything that you feel like you can't leave without saying this one last reflection?
Wow. On the river Manatoni, where the hills of rolling green meets the light of heaven's sunshine through the tall majestic trees. The last thing I can say is Clifford Fields would not be Clifford Fields if it had not been for the vision of Pine Forge Academy all those years ago. Because I was destined to play football. And Pine Forge did not have a football team. But it had a team of teachers who knew how to pray, who knew how to pull the best out of the worst kid. And that kid turning his life or her life around. I thank God for Pine Forge. That's my place.
Okay. Finish this sentence real briefly. Just finish this sentence. Pine Forge Academy is
the best place to be as a young person to see the future of what you can do as you impact the world through what you've learned.
amazing. Now, you think we're finished? One last thing. This is going to be rapid fire round.
Okay.
Just real quickly. I'll say something and you rapidly just finish it, okay?
Let's go.
Your favorite Pine Forge Academy tradition.
Little Lake, working at Little Lake.
Favorite teacher or staff member.
Woo! There were so many. So I have to say the Burns and the Cantus.
Favorite place on campus.
The Knoll.
Favorite cafeteria meal.
Swiss steak, I think it was.
Okay.
Mr. Brooks made
Favorite school event.
junior, senior. We left campus.
Best memory in the dorm.
When a skunk came down the sophomore wing, and I didn't know what it was, but it was a skunk. And everybody ran, but he did not spray the dorm. He got out. And I think Julio chased it. Guy, I don't know if you remember Julio. Julio chased the skunk. So that's my favorite memory.
The classmate most likely to make you laugh.
It was two, Dwayne Edwards and Sam Perry. They just made me laugh all the time.
One word that describes Pine Forge Academy.
Excellent.
What song instantly takes you back to your PFA years?
You Can't Beat God's Giving. We used to sing that song for offering.
Last question. If you could relive one day at Pine Forge Academy, what day would that be?
The day we picked apples. That was a high day. It was a day we got out of school, but we went out, picked the apples, then took them to Boyertown to get them pressed and jugged. So yeah, I like that.
Wow. Thank you, Clifford. You just brought back so many memories for me, too. And I hope that those who hear this are going to be inspired and understand what went on at Pine Forge because you, in sharing your story, you've added to the thread the, of legacy, the Pine Forge tapestry. To our listeners, thank you for joining us for this episode of Threads of Legacy, the Pine Forge story.